How are your meetings going in Cornwall, Mr. President? How are your meetings going here in Cornwall?
Very well.
Come on.
Former President Bill Clinton was in town and met up with U.S. Attorney General Loretta Lynch as she was arriving in Phoenix.
We did not rebuke her. We thanked, but acknowledged that she made a clarification. So before we go too far down the path.
Yeah, these aren't my words.
No, I
these are
understand
your
that.
members'
But,
words.
no, that's a member.
Yeah.
This is kind of scary because I only realized this a couple of days ago and I've only come out to a few people. I'm a guy.
We're building back better together, and building back greener, and building back fairer, and building back more equal, and how shall I, more, in a more gender neutral and perhaps a more feminine way.
Man, Boris Johnson has gone sideways. What a weirdo. Come on, Boris. Get a piece of your mind back. He did invent Building Back Better, though, I believe. That was his saying before it was Biden's. But what is this wokeism from BJ?
Is it the new wife, maybe?
Is it ridiculous, disgusting? You know, I've talked to him. Did you know that? I interviewed him.
I did not know.
Yeah, he wrote a book about London. We had him on. Well, we had him on when he might have been the London mayor at the time. I don't know. But he had no business talking to us. And me and Hillary Chabot at the Herald, but he did. He was fantastic. A little bit crazy and wonderful. But this woke, track that he's on is no bueno, Boris. Come on, man. We'll get to that in a bit. I want to start here with something that really is really kind of a huge event. And you wouldn't really know it because the central issue here was something that was punted by the media when it shouldn't have been. Back in 2016, just as Hillary Clinton was being investigated and the Benghazi judgment essentially was coming out, which led to her emails, which led to them finding her emails, but also finding that she not only used her own personal email for United States business, but used her own personal servers. Very, very typical, very shady, very unethical, maybe most likely, not even most likely, absolutely illegal BS. And on the eve, when this is all about to come to a head, Bill Clinton coordinated a meeting with Loretta Lynch, who was the Attorney General for Barack Obama. He was on the tarmac in Arizona, in Phoenix, and her plane was coming in.
Right.
And so he got all giddy. Somehow he knew about it. Got all giddy. Her security detail gets off the plane and starts to get ready to transfer her to a car. He essentially runs up the stairs into the plane and spends 30 minutes with her. She is about to make decisions on
whether or not to indict
exactly
Hillary.
His wife. So when this happens at the time, this is 2016, in June, I think. When this happens, the security teams are freaked out. Her team is, because they're Secret Service, etc., and they're like, oh my, what is going on here? We can't have this. Everybody knows what's here. We were all witnesses. There's reporting that somebody went around and took everybody's cell phones at the time, and Clinton's Secret Service guys were scared to death and saying, "What?
Right.
This is craziness." And so there was a bit of chaos while this is happening. He's in there for 30 minutes.
Right.
And you know what he was doing for 30 minutes, Alice?
Talking to Loretta Lynch?
He was trying to get his wife off, is what he was doing. He was trying to make sure that she was exonerated and that the Department of Justice would sniff elsewhere. That's what he was doing. He can say grandkids and go-karts all he wants to.
Yeah.
But anyway, so this was never going to be known to the world. And this is a huge thing. It was before the convention, but she was the nominee for the Democrats to be the most powerful person in the world.
Right.
For president. She already was essentially the nominee.
And in their minds, because the Republicans were nominating Trump, in the minds of a lot of Democrats, already essentially the president.
Yes, absolutely.
There was no question that she would beat Trump once that happened.
Of course, he was on Trump. There's no way he would win. You're right. That's a good point. And so, Loretta Lynch, after 30 minutes expires, Clinton eventually gets off the plane and goes his own way after the transaction is finished.
Right.
She then the next day is giving a crime, gun control talk with law enforcement, etc., and then takes questions from the press.
Right.
She gets 10 minutes into this thing. She had made the decision by now, obviously.
Right.
Since she didn't immediately disclose it when it happened, which you would want to do if you'd want to CYA, she had rolled the dice and said, okay, we'll just keep it secret. It was that easy for her to decide to keep a clandestine meeting with the wife of the Democratic nominee.
Husband.
The husband of the Democratic nominee secret. That's how quickly she recalibrated her moral compass, her ethical standards, and said, okay, that move right there is so unethical and incredible that she tried to cover it up. She was not telling anybody about this whatsoever. Nobody was to say a thing. This is something that you would have to make public just so there wouldn't be a conflict. You would have, but she didn't. She chose to hide it. Absolutely. Except for one of the guys working in the airport saw what was going on and called a friend of his who worked at a TV station.
Right.
And the friend of his is named Christopher Sine. He worked for Arizona, ABC 15 in Arizona. This guy, Christopher Sine, and I played it the intro, makes a decision to go to air with this based on his friend's account. And he did subsequent other interviews. They work on the story, but first they talk to somebody at the press event for ABC 15 and reported there and say, hit Loretta Lynch with a question about this, and let's see if she'll confirm it. So they asked Loretta Lynch the story, and she confirms it, which really should have been the last day on the job for her. The moment she did that, certainly, and there should have been an absolute wall-to-wall investigation. This is tampering with a presidential election that is happening here. But,
and tampering with a potential criminal investigation.
Oh, absolutely. Just for so many reasons. But because these people are craven, she doesn't. What she does do is recuse herself for the investigation, the Hillary investigation.
Right.
Which she shouldn't have. She should have been fired. Really, the president, Barack Obama, no scandals, not one smidge, should have fired her. But, of course, he's not going to because this is a cartel of corrupt individuals. So that's fine. But this guy, Christopher Sine, they get the reporter to ask the question. Lynch is on her heels, surprised by this. She has to cough it up. He then gets to do the breaking news hit.
Well, let's bring it back here at home here in Phoenix in a very interesting meeting on the tarmac at Sky Harbor International Airport. As ABC 15 has confirmed, former President Bill Clinton was in town and met up with U.S. Attorney General Loretta Lynch as she was arriving in Phoenix. Now, this meeting took place just hours before the release of the Benghazi report, so we asked her about it.
I did see President Clinton at the Phoenix airport as I was leaving, and he spoke to myself and my husband on the plane. Our conversation was a great deal about his grandchildren. It was primarily social and about our travels. He mentioned the golf he played in Phoenix.
It doesn't end there. We're told the private meeting on board her plane lasted about a half hour. Lynch then told us there was no discussion of Benghazi, of State Department emails involving Hillary Clinton, or any current matter having to do with her office, Dan.
This is huge. This guy, Christopher Sine, just blew up this story and exposed them. Remember, he doesn't get that call, answer the call, and follow it up, then we never know this. This doesn't exist in history. This is something that you and I would be accused of being conspiracy theorists and crazies. Maybe Jack Dorsey would ban us from Twitter. This was one of those things that they would have laughed and scoffed away. But no, they were absolutely busted during an illicit meeting at night in Phoenix, talking about absolutely not grandkids.
Not anything that was really pressing for either of them on the job that related to both of them in very deep importance.
Right. So at the time, I worked for the Herald. I can't believe that this has happened. And when watching, I remember being on the Herald Radio and we were watching the media not cover it, the left media not cover it, as if it was not a big. It was remarkable. But this guy, Christopher Sign, deserves all the credit in the world because there are news outfits that would not have covered it. So, but he did. He was subsequently he talked about getting death threats, etc., which of course makes sense because a lot of people assume that he caused the Hillary to lose.
Right.
But what he did, this incredibly huge event did change history because out goes Loretta Lynch, in comes Jim Comey to run the Hillary investigation the way he wants to, with one hand, meanwhile launching the Trump investigation with the other hand into Trump's people, including having his cohorts, Dr. FOIA requests, etc., and and all sorts of other not FOIA requests. What is that? What are those requests? FISA requests,
Right.
And all sorts of illegal and shady materials so they could bust Trump. They knew that they could do whatever, like as you were saying, they knew that they could break the law and bend the law and do everything unethical that they needed to because as soon as Hillary was elected, then she'd broom everything.
Right.
So,
and
so Comey goes out in that summer, reads this damning list of things Hillary did wrong and says, well, her intention wasn't to break the law. She's cool. She's clear. And then he puts the screws to Trump under the assumption that Trump is going to lose and that Hillary will be just fine with him doing that. They all bet on it. All of them in the FBI bet on it.
Right.
And they bet and lost.
Right. And it's important to remember that they were so assured that Hillary would win. And that's driving a lot of their decisions, because it's very easy to look at Jim Comey's decision to announce that they were investigating Weiner's laptop right before the election. And I mean, I remember at the time, all my liberal friends were incensed and they were convinced that he was like this big Republican and he wanted Trump to win and all this stuff. And that's why he said that. But he didn't look at it that way. He was looking at it from the lens of Hillary's going to win. And if it comes out that I covered it up, they'll say I helped her win and her win is illegitimate. He was worried that he would, by covering up for her, delegitimize her win, which he saw as certain. He absolutely didn't want Trump to win. He didn't think that that was even a possibility that entered his mind. He was doing everything he was doing from the assumption that she was going to be his new boss.
Right.
But he was concerned that the laptop stuff with Weiner and everything looked so bad that if he sat on it, that it would look like they were all in the tank for Hillary. That was his concern. So, I just wanted to put that in before somebody says like, oh, well, Jim Comey is very even-handed. He did this before the election, because that's not the case. No, he's a nefarious, self-centered megalomaniac. He's probably psychotic. So anyway, I reach out to Christopher Sign because I'm going to write a column on this and try to roar about this incredible infraction of our laws and this injustice that happened, that the media was saying, oh, they just talked about grandkids, and the media bought. So I'm rip bleep at this time in 2016. So I reach out to Chris Sign from ABC 15. I say, Chris, thanks for the story. I said, I'm trying to get a feeling for how long Loretta Lynch was at the microphone before she first mentioned that meeting, thanks to you. He says, we relayed the question to the reporter who was already planning to be at the meeting. I confirmed through sources, and then me and management, relayed the info to our reporter and the key question to ask Lynch during the news conference. My colleague asked the question about 10 minutes in, so that's what I was looking for. About 10 minutes in, just to make sure that she wasn't going to get to it. Right.
And she wasn't going to get to it. So he says, I hope that helps you. Of course, right now this guy was in a huge media storm because he had the scoop, a huge scoop. So I said, awesome. Beer's on me when you're in Boston. Have a great weekend. He said, you got it, buddy. Have a nice weekend yourself, Tom. Nice guy. We corresponded one time after that, a couple years later. But I don't know his politics. I don't know anything about him. Did you text Jane just so that they know what we're doing? Mm-hmm. Oh, good. Perfect. I don't know anything about him at all, other than when it came to it, he and that station did the right thing.
Right.
And there was some fallout afterwards. He went on Fox and he was asked about the death threats that he'd gotten and this and that, and that there was, he had a price to pay for doing this stuff. He had moved to Alabama, smaller market, and gotten a job there.
Right. If you go against the consensus and you report on stuff you're not supposed to, like the New York Post did with Hunter Biden's laptop, or like Andrew Breitbart did with Weiner, or like Christopher Stein did with this tarmac meeting, there's a price to pay just in terms of professional consequences too. Certainly.
Absolutely.
Right away.
Absolutely. So now the reason I bring the whole thing up, and Allison and I talked about this and I wrote about my Substack yesterday, is that he was found dead yesterday in his house at 45 years old. This Christopher Stein had 3 kids, young kids, unfortunately. He does mention in a subsequent message that trying to get to the pedal to the metal to get home to hang with my family. So this guy is now dead, and they're looking at it as a suicide. There are all sorts of I have no idea what happened.
We don't have any more information on the circumstances than that. That's it. I am not suggesting that he was murdered. There's nobody suggesting that he was murdered. They say they're investigating it as a suicide. There's been a lot of suicides. This has been a tough time. Who knows? But right.
I am saying that since all of us collectively said a couple of years ago, protect Jeffrey Epstein. He's got a lot of information. And right before our eyes, the guards left and the camera broke and he ended up dead. I leave nothing off the table anymore. Nothing off the table anymore. We live in a world where the husband, who's a former president of the Democratic candidate, will secretly run up the plane stairs into the plane and have a clandestine meeting about exonerating his wife, and it wouldn't have been known or existed unless somebody found it out.
Right.
So, anything is possible.
Look at the Anthony Weiner thing, how Andrew Breitbart, who also suddenly died in his 40s under mysterious circumstances, look at how Andrew Breitbart was treated by the media for reporting on Clinton buddy Anthony Weiner.
No, they're in the cooler that's on the kitchen table. I showed you.
For reporting on Anthony Weiner's gross misconduct with young women on the internet. And he was treated like an absolute pariah, like a crazy person. Everyone said this absolutely couldn't be true, and he had photos to back it up and prove it. And look at how the media acted about Hunter Biden's laptop. Russian disinformation campaign. He was hacked. It was stolen. Twitter locked the New York Post, the oldest newspaper in the oldest tabloid newspaper in the country. Their Twitter account was locked. They couldn't use it for weeks. I mean, it's absolutely outrageous that the media behaves this way about certain topics that you're not even allowed to question this thing. I mean, the Epstein didn't kill himself thing is such a meme that it's like a joke now. But at the same time, it's like not really that funny that our media does this.
Epstein did not kill himself. Alice, the guards walked away. When they came back, he was dead. Now, the backup that they have for that, the cameras, was disabled. Epstein, that is a multi-level suicide.
Yeah.
First, I have to convince them to go away, and then I have to convince the camera to not be on. Then I have to hang myself. I'm just saying that, how many more things have to happen in that situation? If Maxwell ends up dead, Alice, then I'll pick her up.
Really. It's incredible, but it's incredible even without taking the most extreme case, it's still incredible because, like you say, he was forced into a smaller market, had death threats against him and his family, was charged with ruining the election for Hillary Clinton just because he acted on a tip like a reporter is supposed to do and reported on a true thing that happened that some powerful people didn't like. I mean, that in itself, without even, if that in and of itself drove him to mental health problems and suicide, that's a big enough story in itself without anything else surrounding it, And like I said, we don't know anything else about the circumstances surrounding his death, so I'm not going to go out here and make any claims about it forensically right at this moment. But in and of itself, like what happened to him before this event is bad enough. The fact that kids don't know his name when he's a reporter who bravely reported the truth when no one else would is incredible on its own. And the fact that we have such a compulsion towards being on a political team that we're willing to accept anything less than truthfulness from the media and from, reporters is really, it's troubling. And it's troubling because, we do it not just, the problem isn't just with the people in the media. The problem is with the people who consume media who aren't interested in knowing the truth. It's the same with like the Ronan Farrow piece on Harvey Weinstein that he had to shop around because a bunch of places sat on it. Yes. Because they said, this is going to bother powerful people and we don't want to publish it.
Right.
And he had to take his reporting to other places that would publish it.
Right.
Because major quote-unquote news organizations sat on it. And my understanding is this is a local news affiliate that broke this story. Mm-hmm. This isn't CNN or Democracy Dies in Darkness, Washington Post.
The Washington, yes, this is probably an owned and operated franchise of ABC.
Right.
But imagine if it was the national reporters.
They would not have covered it.
Somebody who works under George Stephanopoulos. Do you think Steffi would have covered it?
Nope.
No.
They would not have covered this. So maybe they would have covered it next year after the election.
Right, you're right. So how many times did they meet on tarmacs, one wonders?
Right.
How many times did all sorts of things happen? Remember, we were also gaslit after Hillary took the header in that same year on 9/11. We were told, no, absolutely is not true. That is not true. She is fine. She's in the car. She's hanging out with her daughter. Hanging out with her daughter instead of going to the hospital. How interesting.
Yeah, and right now we're being gaslit about President Biden and his whatever is going on with him cognitively, which was on full display for the rest of the world to see, some of which are not our allies, by the way. I mean, obviously this group of nations is our allies, but not all the people watching and not all the reporters watching work for our allies. Yes. Russian news is reporting on Joe Biden's cognitive decline, and that is a bad and a scary thing that is happening right now.
At one point, he was shuffling around in a cafe.
How are your meetings going in Cornwall, Mr. President? How are your meetings going here in Cornwall?
Very well. Come on.
There's Jill. Gathers him.
Really nice to meet you. They always do.
At one point, he's, and I've seen. I talked about the other day when we played that the I Love Your Dog stuff. She gathered him then too. And
she herds him around. Yeah,
she grabbed him gently by the hand as if she was told to do it in a certain way, and brought him around. At one point, Boris Johnson is introducing people in. Johnson's crazy now, but Biden. Says, you forgot to introduce this guy. Johnson said, no, I just did.
President Ramaphosa, President Moon, in just a minute. And the President of South Africa. And the President of South Africa, as I said earlier.
Oh, you did?
I certainly did.
So you get mentioned twice, so.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, great. He doesn't remember who you introduced and he didn't. That's fine. That's great. But the media is all in on the act, and foreign media is reporting on this, and the U.S. media is in a blackout. You're crazy and evil if you comment on the fact that the president is not doing okay right now.
Is there anything written up that's saying this from foreign media that you've seen?
Well, that was Sky News, the clip that you just played.
Right. Well,
so
that's Fox.
But then the cafe thing was being reported in Russian media.
Right.
That's where I first saw it was from. It was like Russian media was tweeting about it. Because he's just alone in this cafe, which I have like multiple concerns about this. Where is the Secret Service right now? Like he's just alone in this cafe and the other people have, walked too fast for him and he's just like wandering and there's random people talking to him. Like, what is this? What would have happened if one of those people was a bad actor? I don't know.
Well, I don't know if the cafe was out in the middle of nowhere. I think they're at this resort, but yeah.
But
no.
was everybody there, like, Chet? Like, where shouldn't the Secret Service be nearby him? I don't get it.
I don't know.
How come he's allowed to just wander off?
Yeah,
like
you don't want
that?
free-range Joe. That is no good.
Ooh.
So that's happening right now. The whole thing over there is an odd thing anyway. Just that vision. I'm sorry. That thing where they all stood socially distanced apart on the platform.
Yeah, it was very odd.
And there's a great new meme now that shows the leader of China using them as chess pieces. But I mean, it's also like this is unfortunately almost all these folks. Is Poland in the G7 or not? Are they?
I don't think so.
This is just such a woke event. It's so ridiculous. And, of course, it has to be nice and woke. And they're all social distance, etc. for the photo ops. And then they all get together and they're rubbing shoulders. And
yeah. Did you notice, too, so they had that cute video of them all, like, bumping elbows,
Yes.
even though they were all, like, next to each other all the time, most of the time. But they had them all bumping elbows. But you notice they cut Joe Biden from the bumping elbows footage?
No.
He's not in it. They
Why?
just show, I don't know.
Oh.
So maybe he wasn't capable of the elbow bump. I don't know. But they, like, skip from the person before him and that person's significant other, like, right to Jill Biden. Like, they skipped Joe bumping elbows. So we're not allowed to see how Joe bumps elbows, probably because he couldn't handle it. I don't know.
So this is Boris Johnson. This is another part of it. This is apart from Biden. But Biden would absolutely endorse every word of this. Mm-hmm. Just talking just a flim-flam.
What's gone wrong with this pandemic, or what risks being a lasting scar, is that I think that inequalities may be entrenched.
God, shut up. Shut up.
And we need to make sure that as we recover, we level up across our societies and we build back better. And I
level up.
Mm-hmm.
File that word right next to spaces.
actually think that we have a huge opportunity to do that, because
use since the constitutions of all these countries are suspended, use this time to rebuild society in the vision that the Commonwealth vision that works for you. Now that we can move all the pieces around because everything extra constitutional is happening everywhere. It's like, what a bunch of Euro socialists.
as G7, we are united in our vision for a cleaner, greener world, a solution to the problems of climate change.
All this shows you
Mm-hmm.
is that none of them take the pandemic seriously.
Right.
That's it. No, I'm going to use this now to pivot to the stuff I want to do. But wait a second, what about the all-encompassing pandemic? Well, no, there's the pandemic of inequality too. So there you go. Now let's start redistributing money.
And in those ideas, in those technologies, in which we're all addressing together, I think there is the potential to generate many, many millions of high-wage, high-skill jobs. And I think that is what the people of our countries now want us to focus on. They want us to be sure that we're beating the pandemic together and discussing how we'll never have a repeat of what we've seen. But
yes, that's it. That's all we need, as a matter of fact.
We're done.
Yeah, no, we don't need
Just the pandemic, and then find out how this one happened so we can stop China from allowing this to happen again. That's all we need.
Exactly. We'll handle the creating millions of jobs by deciding it's time we want new electric cars and wind and solar things. We'll do it from there, and then you can have the jobs come over and migrate jobs from very easily, I'm told, from John Kerry, by the way.
Right.
You can work on the Pontiac plant one day, and you can work on the Tesla plant the next day. It's the same thing, John Kerry told me.
Also that we're building back better together, and building back greener, and building back fairer, and building back more equal. And how shall
I hope, because I liked Boris Johnson, I hope that he's just caught in a cul-de-sac of thought here, and he's unable to escape, so he's just going back around in circles until somebody adjourns the meeting. Or, maybe he's just, what he's probably doing here? Mm-hmm. He's just bull bleeping until the press person can boot them. So maybe that's what he's doing here.
Right.
But this wokey smack talk stuff does not instill confidence in this guy.
And more in a more gender neutral and...
What the hell is happening now? What is going on now? The more gender neutral? What exactly are the action items we're supposed to take from this?
Perhaps a more feminine way. What? How about that? Apart from anything else.
What are you gonna wear a dress? I don't understand.
We're gonna wear dresses while addressing climate change.
So those are some of the objectives that we have before us at Carbis Bay. Thank you all very, very much. I'm now going to ask our friends from the media very, very kindly to leave us to our deliberations, which by tradition, this is meant to be a fireside chat between the great democracies of the world. It's turned into a gigantic media.
Yes. Now, yes. So that's what we're going to talk about. Media, get out of the room. We're going to
talk about feminizing the economy to make it more green without you here. Oh, God.
Incredible. So that's what's happening over there. All right. Now let's see. Closer. Oh, I have a personal life lesson I learned today. I didn't learn it just today. I've known it, but another example availed itself to me today.
Mm-hmm.
And I know we got a hard out here, but you know how it's easy to judge people, and it's comfortable to pigeonhole people to where you want them to be categorized.
Mm-hmm.
It's your Dewey Decimal System. Somebody who goes to Starbucks and has a coexist sticker on on their what's that thing? The car that doesn't burn any Prius. I want to be able to file them away into the progressive Livis Warren fan place. Mm-hmm. Probably underneath it all, very possibly a jerk, maybe not. So we were in Newburyport, Massachusetts today.
We were.
Yes. And we went by. There's a really big mansion. There's a lot of them in Newburyport, Massachusetts. Mm-hmm. But there's a really big mansion, and it has a Black Lives Matter sign on it. It's always had a bunch of Black Lives Matter signs. And I'm, of course, thinking, what an a-hole this guy is who lives in this mansion. Because, you've got the $1 million, probably $4 million mansion in Newburyport with a wrought iron gate, and you have the Black Lives Matter thing. So you feel your job is done, but you're probably day-to-day just a selfish jerk who's just virtue signaling on the lawn there, and that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
But so this guy was having a lawn sale today. So I like lawn sales. It's, it's the in-person version of Craigslist, sometimes free stuff. So we go to his yard sale today, and two of the kids come out with me, and James is looking at this old kind of bowler hat from like the 1930s, whatever it is. Mm-hmm. And the guy who owns this place says, "Hey, do you want the hat? Here, this is on me. You can have it." And he gives him this old hat. My other son, Anson, is there, and he said, "Hey, why don't you grab a hat too? It's on me. It's my pleasure. The kids leave free with something today." And then Anson grabbed an old, authentic policeman's hat, which is a really cool looking hat. So anyway, I just wanted to say that I had this guy pigeonholed, and he turns out to be a really nice guy.
Mm-hmm.
So it happens in the world that nice guys
it does.
are out there.
Mm-hmm. That's true. Was this going to like a specific...
No, that's it.
That was the story?
Mm-hmm.
I like it. That's good, yeah. You thought the Black Lives Matter person would be a jerk, but they weren't. And he had cool old school hats. So what did we learn today, honey? Not to pigeonhole people?
I didn't learn, like I said earlier. What are you doing exactly?
I'm trying to look up what type of hat it is. It might be a trilby.
Or it's Stetson.
He said it was a fedora, but I don't think it was exactly a fedora.
Yeah, maybe. Who knows? All right. Okay, so we are a little pressed. Oh, we got 10 minutes, Alice. All right, let's just roll through some stuff here.
Okay.
Uh-oh, did I
You're
screw that
messing
up
up the sound by
Sorry.
hitting the
Okay.
table. Yes.
Okay. Let's see. Do I want to go there? I want to go to somebody on TikTok, Alice, with the handle not cashmere socks.
Okay.
Okay, so get ready for this. This is a young lady, and probably late teens or early 20s.
I think my understanding is she was just in college.
Just in college. All right, so here we
she's
go.
back from college.
And here we go.
This kind of
She's standing there on the side of the road or the yard, whatever, with like 10 or 15 friends around her. So there you go.
Wearing a rainbow flag.
Wearing a rainbow flag.
this is kind of scary because I only realized this a couple of days ago, and I've only come out to a few people. I'm a guy.
First of all, why the applause? Awesome. So what if she turns back? I'm a girl. Boom. It's not interesting at all. So fine. She's decided that she's a guy.
I use he, they pronouns, and I'm gonna go by Theo. Yeah.
Do these well-meaning fools have any idea what they're doing?
No, of course not.
We're celebrating feelings and things. Yeah, whatever you... Do they know? Do we know necessarily if this is the best thing for Theo? We don't know. We don't know if Theo's making right. Well, maybe it is the best thing for Theo. Maybe it's
But
not the best
everybody knows the best things for themselves at every moment in time, honey.
Yeah. I told my mom today, and I have to go home every day and be called my dead name and have she, her pronouns used every time I go home. And no one realizes how hurtful it is. It's like a slap in the face. And I dyed my hair last night so I could feel more masculine, and I was afraid I was going to get thrown out of the house. We love you, Theo. We love you.
First of all, once again, every accommodation must be made by the people around them and never by themselves. Her parents already in trouble. In trouble because they've been dead naming.
Yeah, and
Theo.
she was dead naming Theo 3 days ago.
Right. They raised Stacy for the last 21 years or whatever it is, and nurtured, loved, cared for completely in every possible way. But they're a little late to jumping into Theo. She assumes because they're her sucky parents that she's going to get tossed out of the house, and they're now bad people.
Right. It's hurtful to her that they're using the name that she was using just a couple days ago. Because she's now using a new name and new pronouns. Sorry, they are now using a new name.
But
and
how
new
does she
pronouns.
get to be they? How is that even possible?
He and they. She gets two sets of pronouns.
You can see, by the way, you can see how the social contagion part of this works.
Right, because look at all these people jumping up and down and going, yay,
Yeah.
Theo, we love you, Theo, great job, amazing.
Pick your pronouns. Oh my God, what are your pronouns going to be? They and unk. Is what I said. Okay. Yeah.
I mean, is that just fine? Are conservative people who aren't trans allowed to pick pronouns too?
I don't know.
Can we just demand to be called anything and everybody has to accommodate it? Or is that only apply to trans people? Because if that's the case, it seems to me that that trans people have special rights that non-trans people don't have. Because these people will turn around and tell you, well, wouldn't you be offended if someone called you she?
Right.
Well, yeah, I mean, but you're not trying to make it illegal for people to call you she. If somebody wanted to say Tom Shattuck's a girl, would you try and, get them convicted of a hate crime? I mean,
There's
like,
no thing that can be said that I care about. I just want you to not applaud for me enthusiastically. I just want you to not applaud for me enthusiastically and leave me alone. That's it. And you can call me whatever you want to.
well, and the worst thing about it is there's no way. Not all those people applauding all believe it deep down either.
No. They think they're being really good friends because they're supporting her for anything they want to.
Right.
But there's no easy way to say this. But there's physically similarities between most of these girls in that group.
Mm-hmm. And you.
Well, yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's a good way to say it. And me.
Mm-hmm.
I just see this a lot.
I think there's a relationship between not feeling feminine and not feeling attractive as you go through puberty at this time when, for a lot of young people, being considered attractive is really important and a really big part of their identities. And to see young people around you look really attractive. It's easier when you're old because once you're old, like, everybody starts to be less attractive, so it's
right.
like less of a big deal.
But
when you're
Alice, this doesn't seem like a giving up necessarily on looks. This seems like embracing the homeliness.
Well, yeah, but I think this is just one way of rejecting that, of saying, like, the problem with me isn't that I need to not eat donuts and get on a treadmill. The problem with me is that I was actually meant to be a guy. So that's why this is hard for me. And that's why life is hard for me. And that's why I don't feel good about my body, because there's no way they feel good about their body. I 100% believe that those girls look in the mirror and don't feel good about themselves. That I believe is true.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very nice to have a set, ready-made solution to that problem handed to you that doesn't require you to, like, go to the gym or eat salad.
Wait a second. Do I have this option?
Well, I mean, I do think that it's true that if you decided to say today that, you know, I'm actually trans and come out as trans, that a whole bunch of people would embrace you and be supportive of you and loving towards you who had never done so before.
Ooh.
Do you not think that that's true?
Yeah, I think it's true, yes.
And I think that having that, if you're a person who, and this is particularly true for young people who don't have, like, context and perspective around this, who you're going through middle school and high school that are terrible times to be a person in general, but are especially terrible times to be a person if you're overweight or unattractive or struggling with your body or you don't fit in for whatever reason. If you're autistic, there's a reason why a lot of autistic kids identify as trans. There's, you know, a feeling of not fitting in, of not belonging, of not feeling comfortable in your own skin, things that are very natural to puberty in general. And having a bunch of people tell you, when you say maybe this is the answer, having a bunch of people say, yes, oh, that's wonderful, this is going to solve all your problems. It's a very natural human thing to do that about lots of things, right? Like, everybody has that. Like, when I finally get the job that pays me X, or once I finally find the right person to, you know, to date and get married to or whatever, or once I finally buy the right house, then my life is gonna, like, everything's gonna fall into place and it's all gonna be okay. And it's those types of solutions are very, very tantalizing to people, right? It's like, I just need this one thing and then everything will be fine. And, like, real solutions to problems don't happen that way. They come from, like, doing little things to change your life slowly over time, right? And so, like, but there's a reason why, like, that type of thing seems so compelling, you know, like, oh, this is the answer. This is what everybody else has that I don't have. This is why they all seem so comfortable and self-assured. This is why, like, the prom king and queen seem so happy, and why they seem to love themselves is because they're born the right gender and I'm not. That's why I have problems. And, like, it's absolutely a solution that's, like, tailor-made to be appealing to a person who's in that kind of situation. That's my opinion.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, I mean, the challenge is that it's undergirded by institutions now, and
Right.
and this redefining of things.
No, this is
widespread.
people selling a pack
You've
of
got-
lies to vulnerable children.
Well, but it's not just that. You're changing definitions in order to facilitate all of this stuff. And I'll just go to, this is Senator Lankford, who's maybe Oklahoma, talking to the HHS secretary. This is a big job. This is a cabinet level job. This is a cabinet guy, Xavier Becerra. Okay. He's got an extra S at the end, by the way.
Does he? I thought he didn't.
Maybe not. Okay. Xavier Becerra. Lankford asks him about a certain term that recently has been changed.
I also noticed you changed a term in your budget work. You shifted from using the term mother to birthing people rather than mother. Can you help me get a good definition of birthing people?
Well, I'll check on the language there, but I think if we're talking about those who give birth, I think we're talking about, I don't know how else to explain it to you other than
I was a little taken back when I just read it and saw it that it's...
Becerra pretends to be...
confused.
Right. Oh, it's surprised that you'd even ask that question.
It's like Kamala being surprised you'd ask about the border. What do you mean?
I haven't been to Europe either. No.
What do you mean, the border?
The term mother was gone in spots, and it was replaced with birthing people. And I didn't know if this was a direction that you were going, if there were shifts, if there are regulatory changes that are happening related to that, or what the purpose of that is.
I think it's probably, and again, I'd have to go back and take a look at the language that was used in the budget, but I think it simply reflects the work that's being done.
I definitely get that.
Simply reflects the work that's being done. I don't get it. How does it simply reflect the work that's being done? You said birthing person. It's remarkable to me.
Yeah, well, and the thing is that he's pretending not to understand the question. The question isn't, what did you mean by birthing people? We know what you meant by birthing people. We're not asking you to explain what the word is because we get that you mean a person who gives birth. The question is, why did you switch from mother to birthing person? Right? The question is, why did you switch from a term that was generally understood and has been written into the law for ages to a new word that reflects a specific ideology about who can give birth and who can't?
Right. And the idea that he's coming up, dodging the question and gaslighting, this is how dangerous this is.
I would only say the language is important always. We don't want to offend in our language. I get that. But would you at least admit calling a mom a birthing person could be offensive to some moms, that they don't want to get like a happy birthing person card in May? Or, I mean, can you at least admit that that term itself could be offensive to some moms?
Senator, I'll go back and take a look at the terminology that was used, and I can get back to you. But again, if we're trying to be precise in the language that's used.
Mom's a pretty good word. That's worked for a while, and I think that's pretty precise as well.
Yeah. So do I. But, okay, the other big thing going on this weekend is Democrats are scrambling to try to put out this brush fire that's been caused with Ilhan Omar, suggesting or comparing, essentially, the United States to, was it the Taliban, Alice, that she did most recently?
She said, Hamas and the Taliban, basically, yeah.
Right, okay. So, she's always saying dumb stuff like that, but this time it was Nancy Pelosi who jumped on CNN to try to squash down the outrage.
I want to ask you about Congresswoman Ilhan Omar.
Yeah.
You and other top House Democrats released a pretty rare statement rebuking her for appearing to, quote, draw false equivalencies between the United States and Israel and terrorist organizations,
That's
Hamas and Taliban. She clarified, she said that she was in no way equating them. But since all of that happened, she and others don't seem to be letting this go. Rashida Tlaib, one of her close friends, member of your caucus, tweeted the following: freedom of speech doesn't exist for Muslim women in Congress. The benefit of the doubt doesn't exist for Muslim women in Congress.
Okay,
House Democratic leadership should be ashamed.
But let me just say this.
Yeah.
We did not rebuke her. We acknowledged that she made a clarification. So before we go too far down the path.
Yeah, these aren't my words.
No, I
these
understand
are your caucus members' words.
No, that's a member.
Yeah.
That's a caucus.
A caucus member.
A caucus member.
Yeah. So I just wanted to get your response to that.
No, I'm not. I'm not responding that the Congresswoman Omar is a valued member of our caucus. She
we didn't rebuke her whatsoever as we are rebuking her. All right, we've got to wrap here very shortly. We are going to squeeze in a little bit for those of you on Patreon, but for everybody else, you got the main course. The entree was there. And once again, we thinking about Christopher Sine's family. This has been a just a horrific thing that happened to him, and hopefully there will be brighter days for that young family. But oh man, tough one.
Great to see everyone again. We will be going over and doing a short bit on Patreon as well if you're not on there yet. You can also check out our locals page, burnbarrel.locals.com, where we, talk to people, post things, a bunch of people over there having great conversations as well. But for everybody, we are on Twitter, where we are at burnbarrelpod, facebook.com/burnbarrelpodcast. You can shoot us an email, burnbarrelpodcast@gmail.com, or find us on YouTube. You can comment and like the videos there and everything. Great to see you all.